I was born in 2005. By the time I picked up a controller, the PS2 was already a retro console. But even now, I still hear that sound. That startup, that strange, dreamy animation. And somehow, I feel something. I didn't grow up with the PS2. I didn't experience its launch, or midnight releases, or argue over memory cards with my siblings. But I did discover the games years later, through YouTube, emulators, secondhand discs, and late night Reddit dives. What I found was kind of wild. These old games, they hold up. Not just because they were good for their time, but because they still mean something now. So this video isn't about nostalgia. It's about why the PlayStation 2 era still matters, even to those of us who missed it. The PS2 was powerful for its time, but nowhere near what we have now. It couldn't load open worlds in seconds. It couldn't stream textures or track your eye movement. So instead of brute force, developers leaned on creativity. Shadow of the Colossus told a huge story with almost no dialogue. Okami looked like a living painting, not because of ray tracing, but because it had to be stylized. These weren't tech flexes, they were design choices. And even now, in a world full of over-designed AAA games, these older styles still feel bold, clean, and original. One thing I noticed playing older games, they don't explain themselves. There are no endless tutorials or pop-up hints, no glowing arrows telling you what to do. Eco gives you nothing, and somehow you learn everything. Jak II drops you into a city and hopes you survive. And Metal Gear Solid 2? That game doesn't just teach you, it messes with you. Coming from modern games that handhold you through every button press, this felt different. It felt respected. Like the game trusted you to figure it out. And when you finally did, the satisfaction hit so hard. I grew up in the patch era. Most games I've played were downloaded, updated, hotfixed, balanced, nerfed, and rebalanced again. But on the PS2, what you got was what you got. God of War shipped complete. Final Fantasy X didn't need an internet connection. You popped in the disc, and the game was ready. No updates, no server errors, no waiting 4 hours for a 30GB patch. It's weird, but there's something really pure about that. It's a kind of finality that modern games rarely give you. It makes every PS2 game feel more intentional, more confident. I didn't grow up with these stories, but when I first played them, or even just watched them on YouTube, they stuck. Final Fantasy X, a game from 2001, hit me emotionally harder than most games I've played in the last few years. Silent Hill 2 still creeps me out, not with jump scares, but with its silence. Kingdom Hearts somehow makes existential dread hit you between goofy jokes. These games weren't hyper-realistic. The voice acting was awkward, the faces looked weird, but that didn't matter, because what they lacked in polish, they made up for in heart. They weren't trying to be cinematic, they were trying to be felt. And maybe that's why they still resonate, especially if, like me, you're someone discovering them years later with zero nostalgia bias. There's this myth that games always get better as tech improves, but if you look at the PS2 era, it kind of challenges that. Devs back then were taking wild swings. Guitar Hero wasn't just a rhythm game, it was a whole vibe. Time Splitters gave you a full map editor, no DLC required. And then there's iToy, literally just a camera that turned your body into a controller. No microtransactions, no battle passes, just weird, playful, unfiltered fun. These weren't billion-dollar projects chasing metrics. They were just experiments, and that's what made them exciting. The PS2 era didn't revolve around online. If you wanted to experience a game, you sat down, solo, and just played. No logins, no daily quests, no matchmaking. Just you and the story. Games like God of War and Resident Evil 4 didn't try to be 100-hour sandboxes. They were focused, tight. And even though I'm used to massive open worlds and always online experiences, going back to these older single-player titles was refreshing. Like really refreshing. No distractions, no grind. Just a game that starts, ends, and leaves you with something to think about. And maybe that's what makes them timeless. They didn't try and hold your attention forever. They just tried to make the time they had worth it. Here's the thing. The PS2 era didn't vanish. It just moved. It left the spotlight and showed up in indie games. Tunic brings back that figure it out yourself feeling with almost no text. Sea of Stars plays like a lost turn-based RPG right down to the pixel art. Hi-Fi Rush is stylish, loud, and unapologetically focused, like something that could have launched in 2004. And Dave the Diver? It's confident and just fun. These games aren't trying to be everything. They're just trying to do one thing really well. And in a world full of bloated, over-designed live service games, that focus feels more valuable than ever. Whether they mean to or not, these modern games carry the PS2 DNA. Not in graphics, not in tech, but in intent. I wasn't there when the PS2 launched. I didn't grow up begging for memory cards or blowing dust off discs. But I found these games. Through old YouTube walkthroughs, through emulators, through secondhand shops and stories from older gamers. And once I started playing them, I understood the hype. One of the first PS2 games I really connected with was Ratchet and Clank Going Commando. The humor was weird, the shooting felt tight, and there was this simple joy to just playing it. No loot system, no live events, just a game. And in that moment, even as someone born after the era, I finally got why these games mattered. Not because they were perfect, but because they were confident in who they were. The PlayStation 2 was more than a console. It was a turning point. A time when games were bold, focused, unafraid to be weird. It didn't need photorealism or billion-dollar budgets to make us feel something. And even now, even for people who weren't there when it all happened, the games still land. We still talk about them. We still play them. Because sometimes the most powerful things in gaming came from the simplest hardware. And sometimes the most timeless stories come from an era you never even lived through, but you still feel it. That's why we still love games from the PS2 era, and why we always will.